Representative Anna Paulina Luna had made public that she created a task force called the Declassification of Federal Secrets. And it's covering a handful of different things like the JFK assassinations, MLK Jr., a few others. But obviously, one that caught my attention the most, since what I focus on is UFOs, is her attempt to declassify information regarding UFOs and USOs, which are UFOs that come out of the water. And while there hasn't been a lot of information that has come forward as of yet, she already has a track record behind her. She was present at the latest two UFO congressional hearings, the one in July of 2023 with David Grush, and then the more recent one that took place with Gallaudet, Elizondo, Schellenberger, and Gold. And she has been very vocal about her interest in this topic, that she doesn't want a lot of these just kind of like witness testimonies and hearsay and stories, but she's really attempting to dive in and collect the data, collect the paperwork to back up these claims, especially the ones that Grush made in July of 2023, that we have reverse engineering programs, that we are in possession of non-human biologics and things like this. We all of us, and I think we can all agree with Miss Luna here, that we all want the data. We all want the paperwork to back up these claims, because a story is a beautiful story, but that's all it is. And also, what's interesting here is that she had already made her team public on who's going to be a part of it. And the majority of them, there's seven, 5 out of the 7 have shown a public interest in UFOs. These include Nancy Mace, who was the chairwoman of the latest hearing. Of course, Tim Burchett, who has been in the front lines since the very beginning when we had our very first UFO hearing, the AOI MSG in 2022 with Scott Bray and Donald Moultrie. That was a train wreck of a hearing, but there hadn't been one prior to give a foundation. So I guess that's kind of where we can let it slide. But that particular hearing, I think, paid it forward for the latest two that we got. But Tim Burchett was there at that one. He was sitting in the audience, and he was so furious. He's like, that was the worst hearing I've ever been to. They're just lying to you. It's absolute BS. So much so that he ended up becoming, panel, like a part of the panel for the last two congressional hearings, asking, I would genuinely say, very good questions, very hardball questions, and ones that he wanted very straight answers to. He's also been a part of a lot of interviews and things like this where he has spoken about that there's a lot more to this, but the stance that this task force is taking, and that Anna Paulina Luna and Tim Burchett have been mentioning since the very beginning, and we really need to emphasize this, is that it's not about the little green men. It's about the paper trail. Where is the money going for all of these projects, offices, programs, and things like this? And while it might be an eye roll for so many, I get it. Like, oh, come on, money. It's when you're able to actually follow that paper trail, there is data to back that up. You're able to find the locations and the people involved, hopefully, right? And then you'll be able to get the actual answers that you're looking for. But the best way to go about this is say, oh, it's about the money, when in reality, it might not entirely be the case. So this latest creation of the task force is going to be interesting on how it progresses. They're already moving the ball forward, to my knowledge. That has been public information, that they're kind of already getting started. She already announced her team on I believe it was last week that she announced everyone that was going to be a part of it. So it was Nancy Mace, Tim Burchett, along with Lowen Boebert, who I didn't know about her until she was a part of the latest congressional hearing, where she was asking a lot of questions pertaining to USOs and underwater bases, which were great, but she did not get very coherent answers. And her intro to that congressional hearing, I don't think benefited her in any way. The only downfall to this task force that I think people will definitely notice is that it is the whole panel is Republican. It would have been nice to see there's a bit more diversity with this, but regardless of that, this is a bipartisan issue. We have seen both Republicans and Democrats show a public interest in this. Some Democrats include Jared Moskowitz and Chuck Schumer with the Schumer Rounds Amendment. That was kind of infiltrated into the latest NDAA, but a lot of it was stripped. But it's nice to see that it doesn't matter where you lean in the political party. We all have an interest in this. So that's exciting. And I would really like to see how this is going to continue to unfold and what information the new task force can bring forward pertaining to UFOs and USOs and what they find.
Why do you think that they're going to declassify the JFK stuff before getting to the UAP? Is it just because it's simpler? Because to me, it seems like UAP is a bit more of a pressing issue. It's not something from decades ago that probably isn't going to affect the future of humanity, where to me, like UAP might actually affect the future of humanity.
Well, if that was the case, why haven't those files been declassified sooner, right? We've all been asking these questions. Why haven't the JFK files been declassified at, years ago, decades ago? It's not something that I specialize in, so I can't really provide a lot of commentary, but something that I have mused about is I found it interesting that Anna Paulina Luna picked so many different topics for her task force to investigate these federal secrets. And I thought to myself, what if they all have an underlying foundation, all have an underlying similarity? And I haven't found what that is yet, but that's something that has caught my attention and has definitely crossed my mind as well.
And as far as Anna Paulina Luna's task force that we were talking about earlier, what do you think disclosure would look like from her? Would it be something basic like, yes, non human intelligence does exist and has been visiting us for a while? Or would it be just declassifying certain documents that would make it really obvious that we're being visited? Or what do you think?
I think it'd be the latter there, Devin. When we're dealing with the government, it doesn't matter where their heart is. It doesn't matter, what their narrative or agenda is. They still have to follow a blueprint. They still have to follow the leader, which is disappointing, but that's just how it is. All the information, and I'm literally just guessing here because I don't know, but all of it's going to have to be revised beforehand, see if it clashes with any national security issues. That will always be the narrative. And then from there, I can guess a lot of documents that might surface are going to be heavily redacted, if any, or maybe might even turn around, turning into the pessimistic Christina, that we won't get any documentation about UFOs or USOs, and the underlying answer will be there's nothing to this. Now, do I think that's actually going to happen? I hope not. I really don't. But looking at previous administrations, previous offices, that is how it has been turning out. There were a lot of hopes for the Aero office, where Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick was the chief of before he resigned in December of 2023, and we got nothing. And then same with the UAPTF. The original reports, classified as preliminary reports, they were incredibly late. They were much later than when they told the media they're going to be dropped on this day. Instead, they were usually dropped on a Friday where the media cycle's already closed up for the weekend. And most people didn't even know that it dropped until you ran over to Twitter. And when those took place in 2022, 2023, into 2024 as well, we got preliminary reports from the UAPTF and Aero, and then we got the Volume 1 report from Aero. Baby, where's Volume 2? We haven't even gotten that yet, even though we now have a new director of Aero, Dr. John Koslowski, which nobody knew anything about him until he showed up to his hearing with Kirsten Gillibrand talking about his Aero report that he released just a few days before that hearing. During that time, you could only find one picture of him, his professional former formal picture. Other than that, there was hardly any information, minus his like educational background, like what he specializes in. Similar to Dr. John Kirkpatrick. And then when he was a part of office, he wrote that paper with Harvard professor Avi Loeb, hypothesizing that some of these motherships in space could be dropping dandelion seeds, which is how they classified it, which were better described as drones, dropping onto planets, seeing if they're habitable and things like this. And not enough people grabbed on to that. Like, Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick was a two-faced coin. In front of Arrow, he says, "There's nothing to see here. Everything's explainable. Actually, it's so boring. Don't ask me any questions." And then he wrote a paper with Avi Loeb hypothesizing these incredible ideas. Now, for Dr. John Kozlowski, he's given no media appearances. We saw him once and that's it. He's never shown up since. Maybe because he learned from his predecessor. He's like, Dr. Kirkpatrick got burned so bad, but he did that to himself by constantly contradicting himself in so many interviews. Kozlowski thought to himself, I'm not going to follow this man's footsteps. There is no way. However, these offices have been a disappointment. We don't know how much funding they're getting either. Their reports are lacking the data on how they got those conclusions. So with the new task force created by Anna Paulina Luna, I really hope that she looks at these previous offices and tries to hopefully tell herself, I don't want to follow the same footsteps, and I want to give the information that the people are asking for. But I don't know how it's actually going to turn out. I want to be optimistic. I am a bit optimistic.